It's Friday, January 17th, 2025. Start off as we typically do. I do have some programming notes, but first I will say, if you'd like to support our show, then you can go to supportourshow.com, and there you will find various ways that you can support the show. And I forgot to mention this because I don't think it's on the support page, and I just assume everything is there, and I forgot. But I don't know if the code Ozone still works. Feel free to try it. Nobody's told me one way or another. Ozone could get you some amount of time free on Libsyn, or it may not. If you try it, let me know. Programming note. So, predictably, when I went to upload the first the first 4-hour two-parter.
Is this YouTube?
Yes, of course it's YouTube.
Okay.
So, part 1 and part 2 of the Star Trek retrospective are done. It's about a 4-hour-long video. And, of course, I put clips into it, and I uploaded it, and predictably, it was immediately blocked for visibility everywhere. So I appealed it, but it takes 30 days, so that would put it past the point where I'm going to publish it. So I had, of course, prepared a version where the clips are all gone, and instead I have just a screenshot that's insulting Paramount Pictures, the U.S. Copyright Office, and YouTube. So that version was accepted. And what then I thought of, though, I had a thought. I wondered, wait a minute. Patreon added video. Does Patreon do screening? And it turns out they don't. Patreon doesn't care. As far as I can tell, you could upload a whole movie in there. And I assume if somebody complained, but I uploaded the full video with all the clips to Patreon, and it took it, and it's there. So I'm going to give everybody the option here. If you're on YouTube and you want to just watch that version, I mean, it's only maybe in total 7-8 minutes worth of actual clips. The rest is me and Doug's faces. So you may want to stick to audio anyway. But if you choose to go with the video and you don't care that much about the clips, you'll still hear the audio. You just don't see the visuals. Although I think we point out that the visuals are kind of important for some stuff because it refutes the joke of William Shatner not being able to act. It's not that he can't act. He just can't act big. And the clips back that up. When he's subtle, he's good. When he tries to do big emotion, it's train wreck. So...
Wait, is that Khan? Did you do Khan?
Oh, Khan is
that's his moment right there.
That's his worst acting in probably almost. Not even that. The scream is fine, but it's when he's like like when he's trying to be intense.
You know what it is about him that I've always noticed when I watch him. Yeah. He's a TV actor.
Well,
he was never but like when you because when you see him in what was the thing he did?
Well, there's T.J. Hooker, and
when you watch T.J. Hooker, right? He is perfect in that world of that cheesy like TV action sequence, where it's like, watch out for my karate chop. Like,
I would slightly disagree with that. I think he's actually an exceptionally good actor when he's doing quiet and a lot of non-verbal.
Yeah.
So,
but the second you put him into he's not an action hero.
No, and that's the problem is when they try to ask him to do big stuff, it's horrible. When they just let him kind of react, he's really good. He's actually quite good. But the problem is that a lot of the times in a science fiction adventure film, They want him to be the big, because nobody else really fits it. It is him. Kirk is the
when
action guy.
When he does the whole the whole chat about the Kobayashi Maru, I love that. I think he's great in that sequence where he's talking about what he did.
Yeah, I think when he's talking to the woman about how he feels old, where he's just sitting there and he looks really depressed and like the whole world's caving in on him, he's great in that scene. And then the next one is the con scene, which is just horrible. It's just the worst overacting. So, so the video version is on Patreon. You can join for free and you can watch it on there. And that's what I'm just going to do now. Is I'm just because I know YouTube's going to block all the Star Trek ones. Paramount, I mean, they might release the hold. They might. I'm not going to say for sure. They haven't rejected it yet. I was kind of shocked. I thought the reject would be within 24 hours. Yeah. But because I appealed it and said, hey, man, this is fair use. Come on.
Make sure that you put on the YouTube description that if you go to the Patreon, you can watch it with clips.
Yeah. I'm gonna put a thing in there saying if you want to see everything, if Paramount doesn't release it. If they release it, then great. Then it'll be there. But
and just to briefly mention it, my audio project is behind. Because I got really sick and my voice completely fell apart. And Joe can attest to this because when he finally heard me over video games, I sounded like death.
Yeah, it wasn't good.
Because you were like, you want to record early? And I was like, I don't think so.
I don't think that's going to be possible.
Okay, got it.
This is the first day, I think, that I've actually gotten most of my voice back.
Yeah.
So I gotta get to this week so I can get it out there. I'd also like to add that you and I talked about forest fires because of that book, and then like right after that, I went to the news and realized how bad things were in L.A.
Yeah,
and I was like, Jesus, I feel like we should put a disclaimer on there that like we recorded like long before I realized how bad things were because I would have connected those things together. Like L.A. is very bad.
Yeah, I mean, that's not good.
Like, that's a worst-case scenario to some degree that I'm reading about. And the fucked up part is having just read that book with all the science of, like, how these forest fires happen and what happens when forest fires hit cities and all this stuff. I'm watching it and I'm going, oh, yeah, this makes perfect sense. And what's weird is that, you hear all these people making the same commentary that they made in the past about these other forest fires that hit cities. And it's the same bullshit where it's like, now I'm looking at it going, yeah, I know it's bullshit now because I've read the science behind the thing, but in the Fort McMurray fire, they were plowing houses that hadn't burned down to create fire breaks in cities. And I was talking to my wife about this, and I was like, yeah, no one's gonna let them fucking knock a house over in Hollywood to create a fire break so that the fire won't keep going. I was like, who's gonna volunteer their multi-million-dollar home for that? And does your insurance cover being knocked over by a fire department, or is the fire department now responsible for your $35 million home? Like, I think that's the part that's quite funny about this is that it's almost the red tape that makes it so you can't stop the fire.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's sad. I feel very bad for these people that are losing everything out there. So
I feel bad for the non-millionaires who are losing their stuff. The celebrities, I'm sure they are insured. I'm sure they have other homes. They'll be fine. I feel bad for the people who don't have all that money.
I feel bad for anybody who's lost things that are important. How about that? Because there's people. Okay. You know what? You can be rich and still lose something important. I'll give you that. Yeah. I do think it's very funny that Mel Gibson lost his house while he was filming Joe Rogan, going on about what a mistake, but how poorly handled the forest fires were, or something like that.
Yeah. There is a bit of poetic justice in certain things.
But and then there's a ton of actors who've lost their houses as well.
Billy Crystal, Carrie Elways,
James Woods.
James Woods.
So yeah, I don't have a good sense of like where people live in LA. Like when they're talking about these different neighborhoods, I'm just kind of like I have my in-laws are out in that area, and I only found out recently of not my in-laws. What are you talking about? My sister's boyfriend's family. So they're nothing to me, but they would be my Jesus, what is that? Your sister's in-laws. If they were married.
Your sister's in-laws.
My sister's in-laws. Isn't that what it would be? Yeah.
It's still in-laws. It's just
in-laws. There you go. Yeah. So they but they live out there. So I found out tonight that they're actually okay.
I guess it would be uncle-in-law, right? No,
I have
wait.
no idea. Jesus, complicated. Anyway, yeah. So my sister's husband's family is out there, and I was worried. I wanted to know if they were okay, and I was told that they're fine. LA is big, but I find myself like looking on Twitter at certain people who I know are out there and kind of looking at their everyday sort of human updates. They're being like, oh yeah, the fire's just over the hill. We've been told that if the fire comes over the hill, we have to flee. Or other people that are like, my neighbor's house got burned down, but I'm fine. And you're like, oh geez, like I don't know if I could sleep at night with that kind of doom kind of so near. You know what I mean? Like it's crazy. Yeah. So, but I just wanted to mention that I had not read about the LA fires when we recorded that first show because I'd been pretty much.
It was before that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think there was something going on, but it hadn't gotten that big yet when we recorded.
No, it wasn't. So. No, because I mean, really, it didn't get. I think once the wind kicked up, that's when it really went crazy.
Oh yeah, well the wind is what's killing them. I mean, it's blowing everything so quickly, down the way. So. Yeah. Yep. Did you have any other programming notes?
No other programming notes. I did want to say that I learned a new word.
Ooh,
which I like to point out when I find fun words. This word sounds fake. You may already know this word. I did not.
Okay.
I had never heard the word knobble. Knobble. Knobble.
Knobble?
Do you know knobble? Like knob, but add ble on the end.
What does it mean?
Noun: a little knob or lump.
Oh.
So it's almost like a knoblet. Yeah.
That's cute.
It's weird, right? Because it looks like a fake word.
Yeah.
And I came across it in this book I'm reading, and they said a knobble.
Oh, that's funny. And I went,
what is this?
I told you about where the word clue comes from, right? The weird sort of
is it etymology? Is that the word for that?
Yeah, the etymology. Yeah, with Ariadne, where she had the spool of yarn, and that it was how he got out, and that was called a clue at that point, but then it transformed. Yeah, it's really strange the way words evolve.
Remind me, were we talking about the movie Clue and you were unaware of the different endings thing, or did you?
No. I didn't know that they showed different endings in different theaters.
Okay, all right.
I'd only ever seen it with all three endings attached.
Now here's the interesting thing. I learned something new about that. There was a fourth ending that was filmed but never shown. So they did tests of all the different ones, and only one got a strong negative reaction. And the one that got a strong negative reaction is one of them. Tim Curry was just a serial killer who just wanted to kill as many people as possible. So he was just luring people to the house under false pretenses and then killing them all in like a torturous way, making them think one of them killed each other. And nobody thought it was funny, which it probably wasn't. But honestly, or maybe it was.
Honestly, the fourth ending should have been that he was actually Frankenfurter.
I know, right? Yeah.
And it turns into a sexy musical. They all have sex. Yeah.
Yeah, I was watching a thing about that movie because it was a disaster when it came out and nobody went to see it. And then after a while, people started realizing how great it is, and it's a very, very well-made movie for what it is.
It happens. I mean, that happens all the time. There's so many movies that we adore that were considered crap when they came out. Like, I mean, Blade Runner.
Yeah.
Blade Runner was a flop.
Right.
Yeah. And like, there's another. It's interesting because there's movies that suddenly become popular on streaming, and people are like, why is this suddenly popular now?
Yeah. You know what? That is one thing I do think gets overlooked when people complain about streaming stuff. Is one positive, although now you're starting to see that catalogs are disappearing again, and it's just becoming all the slop that they put out. But
Willow, where the fuck is the TV series Willow? Did they just take that off altogether?
Well, Disney's one of the worst, remember? Because Disney does the moratorium bullshit. They originated that whole thing. So, they'll probably, in a few years, put out, I don't know, what's Willow's release date? Hold on, let's see. Willow came out.
Well, not the movie. You can see the movie. It's the TV
I know, but
series.
The movie is 1988. Yeah. So you watch. When they do the 40th anniversary in 2028, they'll have it for a limited time. You'll be able to buy it with the series, and then it'll vanish again. You watch.
Yeah.
Guaranteed. This is what Disney does. So
Yeah, and that's why
what'll happen.
you know there is this part of me that sits there and goes, yeah, maybe it's worth buying the things that you really like, because like you know that Arcane series.
Yes, it is.
I love that Arcane series, and and I didn't know that they had put it on DVD. And there's
Get
a
it.
part of me that's like, yeah, you
Get
know
it.
what? Maybe
You
I
should
should
get
buy
it.
it. Yeah. Man, you
I
know,
mean,
it's
if
so
for no other reason than to rip it to a thing, and then you could sell it again, but you'd have it.
No, it is so funny that I wanted to mention this because I very often don't watch certain things with my wife because I don't really think that they're like her jazz. And there's very often stuff that she watches without me because she thinks that I won't like it. But what's amusing is of late, she turns around after the fact and she's like, "Oh, I would have watched that with you." And I'm always like, "No, you wouldn't have." I was like, "You're totally saying this now because I've already watched it." But like, she likes to watch House when I'm not around. And I have no problem with the show, but like, you know, I think I don't even. I think it's just she likes to watch it when I'm not around. That's like her show. It's just very funny in that respect. Do you have something like that? Well, you have a lot of stuff that you watch without your wife. You know,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, because there's a lot of stuff that she just wouldn't be interested. Like Star Trek. I mean, she would never watch that stuff.
Yeah. Whereas I got my wife into Star Trek because she thought that Pike was cute. So, you know. Thank you, Anson Mount.
I don't know if that would be enough for my wife. I don't know.
Well, listen, it was Stranger Worlds is very well done. So it's like if you have really good production quality and the writing is good and actually it's funny.
Yeah.
I think the thing that she hates, which is something that I hate as well, is when it is miserable.
Well, yes, there is.
You know, and like she didn't like. I watched the first season of Arcane at night, like in bed while she was reading, and she kind of half watched it, and she thought it was so miserable. And I was like, well, you know, they kind of have to set shit up, right? So then, but like, what's the other show? Oh God, Meth. What's that show? Breaking Bad.
Breaking Bad.
I can't. I quit after season 2. I got part of the way through season 2.
I applaud you going that far.
Well, because everyone said it was such a genius show. And the thing is, my main issue with that show is that I don't like anybody. And I've realized that is a hang up of mine. If I don't like any of the characters, then I don't want to find out what happens. I'm not interested.
Yep.
Like in Arcane, you have a lot of people. There's a lot of misery. There's a lot of terrible things that happen. But I'm curious as to what's going to happen. Like I like these people. I am fascinated by them. Like I just started watching that show Cracker with what's his name? Coltrane. Yeah, isn't it Cracker with
Cracker
with
yes.
Coltrane?
Yeah, no,
and
it's Cracker.
you know,
yep.
and Coltrane's character in that series is unlikable. You know, he drinks too much. He smokes too much. He's kind of obnoxious. He gambles too much. But there is something really fascinating about him and the way that he is trying to do something good, you know? And so I'm compelled to watch more because I'm like, okay, you know what? This is an interesting, flawed character. Whereas when I watched Breaking Bad, I like the actor who plays Walter White, but I didn't find Walter White very fascinating to me. And I didn't really like his wife. And honestly, the only character that I thought even remotely amusing was like the DEA brother-in-law. And I'm like, this is not the character to watch this show for. I'll go watch him in Total Recall where he has half a face. So yeah, it's kind of a weird thing. And I realize that that's kind of my own hang up with stories because I need to like the characters. Like and doing this audio project and rereading one of my own books, I realized that my characters are not necessarily good people. I did not remember that most of my cop characters in my first book are not good people. A lot of them are there, and the thing is, they're rejects. They're where they are because they've done something bad, right? But I find them likable. Like I think that's the thing is that. You know, being a little bit removed from it now, reading the stories, I'm like, yeah, you're not good people, but you're amusing, and I like you, and I want to know what's going to happen to you. And I think that's the thing is, like, I think I've said before, is like the mistake is thinking that I'm writing about good people. I'm usually writing about some kind of like villain or something like that from the other dimension or from the other direction. So you're kind of seeing what they do, but I want them to at least be interesting and likable. I mean, a friend of ours loved. Breaking Bad, but he also loved that show Louis, the Louis C.K. TV show.
Oh yeah, okay.
And I found that show to be so massively depressing. Like even the level of humor, the type of humor he was using in that show, I found it so depressing. And I had a friend that was like, "Oh, this is so funny. This is so great. Ha ha ha." And I think this is great. And Breaking Bad's the greatest show ever. And I was like, you know what? I was like, maybe I'm just not wired for this kind of humor, for this kind of entertainment. This is not my thing. But yeah, I got through season 2, and then I was like, I'm good. I'll watch something else. I started watching Cracker.
I guarantee that's a better show for you to watch.
Although, man, you know what? I told you that I was watching this TV show called Jonathan Creek, and after the 3rd season, they changed the lineup of the show. So they kept the main guy, Jonathan Creek, but now he's like secondary is a different woman, and it's a very different situation. But like we got about halfway through this 4th season, and then suddenly the writing just went haywire. Like really haywire, where it couldn't decide whether it was like a serious show or a slapstick show. And then you started getting these elements like right next to each other, almost like 2 different writers were looking at the script. And one writer was like, "This is going to be so gritty." And the author was like, "We should have clowns," like really weird storylines. And it's fucked up because one of the storylines is fantastic, where it's like a guy who's married. He's a composer who's married to a pop star, to like a Britney Spears type. But the thing is that like he's more in love with the pop star ideal of her rather than the reality of the person that she is. And that is like kind of the center of this case that happens, which is like it. The case itself is almost less interesting than the case study of this guy and his obsession with the avatar of his wife rather than the reality of her. It's so interesting. But then the same season, you've got these slapstick episodes where you're like, even the mystery is like kind of ridiculous, but then it's just juxtaposed with like odd, gritty shit. So my wife turned to me and she's like, "I think I'm breaking up with this show." It's the first time I've ever heard her use that phrase. She's like, "I'm breaking up with the show. I don't think I can watch anymore." I'm like, "That's fine. Everyone gets a veto, But yeah, it's hard to find. I find it hard to find new TV when you're looking for a vibe. Not like if you're just looking for new TV, there's an endless amount of it. But when you're looking for a certain vibe, especially like a lighthearted mystery vibe, I find that tough. Everyone keeps telling us we should watch that Steve Martin show with Martin Short.
All the murders in the building,
yeah,
or
something like that. Yeah, but I honestly, I've watched the trailers for it and I have no interest. Just
It
doesn't.
smells like it's really good, but I'm the same way. I watched the trailer and I went, okay.
Yeah, it's like, well, someone described. Oh, I can't remember who this was. Somebody just said it was like Three Musketeers, not Three Musketeers, Three Amigos. It was like Three Amigos, except the girl,
like Three Musketeers.
except
okay.
yeah, except the girl is basically Chevy Chase in this situation. And I was like, really? And I'm like, okay, now I'm almost curious to see that dynamic play out. But again, yeah, I'm just not that massively interested in the. I want a fun fantasy show, like a really good space fantasy show. There isn't really. I feel like we really have a lot of those right now.
Yeah.
Like a new Farscape or.
Yeah.
I mean, the Star Trek is that show right now. Let's see, really, and we haven't gotten. We're kind of hanging on season 2 of Strange New Worlds now. But I mean, really, is there any other current really sci-fi or like fantasy-esque show out there? I mean, I'm done with fucking George R.R. Martin's gritty fantasy world. I want something.
I mean, that Silo show on Apple's supposed to be really good. I haven't seen it, but they say
where
it's really
they
good.
live, everyone's living in like a missile silo.
Yeah, after some biological whatever.
I don't know. You know what?
happened.
I'm kind of living in post-apocalyptic times. I don't think I need a post-apocalyptic show.
Yeah, well, there's that.
I mean, that's my problem. Is like I'd like some hope.
I understand.
Yeah. And I don't see a lot of hopeful shows out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although I have high hopes for Superman, for the new for the James Gunn's DC universe.
Yeah.
I'm really hoping that he's going to bring in the positive.
Me too.
because I mean, he kept Jason Momoa in the DC
No,
world
Jason
and
Momoa,
brought him.
that's better.
Yeah, I know. Well, and he brought Jason Lobo is what it is,
Lobo
and he kept
Momo.
him on as Lobo, and I'm like, okay, that's perfect casting. That might be the character that he's been playing all along.
It is the character he's been playing all along.
And apparently he's part of the Supergirl project. He's doing Supergirl. Like, what is it? I think he's doing the graphic novel with. Was it? Is it Woman of Tomorrow?
Yeah.
Like
The one that we. Yeah. The one
that we.
Yeah.
The one
yes,
we
the one we liked. That's it.
Yes.
Yeah. That's
So
what
I'm excited
supposedly
about
it's based
that.
on, yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited about all that. It's interesting to be excited about DC.
I mean, I would tell you to watch Severance. Severance is excellent.
Is it? Is it not just depressing?
No, I wouldn't. No, I don't think it's an interesting. Is it? I don't think I'd say it's depressing. I think it's a very, very clear criticism on the current state of work. So in that way, it's depressing, I guess. But I don't think it's depressing as a show.
Okay.
In general, that's interesting. Would I call it a depressing show? I don't think I would. I don't think it's necessarily an optimistic show, but I don't think I would call it. It's not. Let's put it this way: it's not Breaking Bad.
Oh well, yeah,
it's a show where you want the characters to succeed.
Yeah,
and I think they will. I don't feel like it's going for a downer ending. I just don't.
And that's the thing is I want a show where I actually want to root for characters.
There's one character in there that I think you would respond to very strongly because there's a parent angle to it that even I was like, oh man, when they did it with this guy. That I was like, oh, that's a man. Did they hit that moment just right? So I don't even tell you what it is because it's good. So I would, because you sit there and you're like, and it's a character where you're not really sure about where this character is.
Yeah.
And then there's a point where you get a motive for something he's doing, and it's all based around being a parent. It's like, okay, got it. And it makes complete sense.
You're like, yeah, it makes sense now. Okay, I got you.
Yep.
Yeah. So. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to nail a vibe.
And because season 2 is about to come out too, it's coming soon.
And isn't Ben Stiller the showrunner on that?
Yeah, which
is so fascinating to me.
I tell you what, it's a. He did another show that's very, very well regarded. I don't remember what it was called, but there was another one that I don't think it was one I would be interested in, but there was another one that was very well regarded that he was in charge of. And I think that was what got him this. And this is, I believe, outside of, what is it? Ted.
Oh,
what
you know what?
What's the Ted show on Apple? What's the soccer show?
Ted Lasso. Ted Lasso.
That's it. Yeah. Outside of Ted Lasso, and I think many people have said, and I would agree with them, that this is a better show, that this is the best thing Apple's done. The only thing more popular was the Ted Lasso show.
I tried to watch Ted Lasso, and I was fascinated by basically the way the main character tries to be so positive in the midst of his own breakdown. Yeah, I thought that was fascinating. My wife was repelled by the show.
Yeah.
She did not like it at all. But it just reminded me, Foundation. That's another series that I should check out.
Oh, yeah, that's supposed to be good too. Yeah, and that I believe concluded. I think it's over. I think it was 3 seasons.
And that's got a lot of good people in it. So.
Yeah, Lee Pace is the main guy.
Yeah. Lee Pace is in it, and then it's it's Jared.
Well,
Harris.
I mean, there's 3 of him, so yeah. Well, Jared Harris is Lee Pace is one of the 3, whatever their names are.
Lee Pace.
Oh, the brothers. He's Brother Day, and then there's Brother Dawn and Brother Dusk.
There's Lee Pace is one of those actors that I feel like should have been bigger.
Oh no, it is still going. I was wrong. It's still going.
I don't feel like he ever got his.
Well, I think this is the one that most people. This and *Halt and Catch Fire*. *Halt and Catch Fire*, he was very well. Actually, that's one you might want to watch.
I saw him in *Pushing Daisies*, and I thought he was fantastic in *Pushing Daisies*.
I think the first thing I really noticed him in was *Halt and Catch Fire*, which is very good. And I like the woman in that a lot. The lead actress in that, whose name she was in *Terminator*.
Oh, yes,
with
yes. She was the
Linda
Terminator,
Hamilton.
Yeah.
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 She's great.
Dark Fate. I think that was.
Whatever. The
Dark-
Linda Hamilton reboot
Yeah,
one.
Terminator,
who
whatever.
knows?
That's what it was.
Terminator whatever.
You know what? If
You know.
if your movie gets to a point in the franchise where it could very easily be called whatever, then you're done. Yeah, honestly, I mean, think about it, right? Star Wars, whatever. Yeah, okay. Episode
and
whatever.
that's, You know, it's funny because
Aliens.
that's the thing that.
Aliens versus Predator, episode whatever. Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, but no, Aliens isn't there yet. It's skimming that edge, man, though, hard. You know, but Romulus,
Sure.
from what I've been told, the first half is excellent and the second half is awful. And I'm like, okay, well, it's half good then.
Oh,
and
really?
I can't say that.
I didn't even hear that.
Yeah, I did. No, I heard that the setup to it is really
Okay.
good and the
I'll have
characters
to-
are really good, and then it just becomes a repeat of all the stuff that came before. Not even terrible, just
Yeah.
if you've seen
not
all the
original.
movies, you know, it's just
But you know
all
what? Maybe the
references and everything.
problem is just like. Maybe the problem is that we have. I think you and I, and a lot of people, maybe we're living at the edge of the end of like a story loop. I feel like with storytelling in society, in culture, right? There is this point where all the old stories get told again in a different way. Because
Okay, but you know what?
Yeah. No, hold on. No. But it's the idea that maybe we're at that point now where they're starting to take the old stuff and rebrand it and tell it again to the younger people. We're too old to matter now, basically.
Well, my only refute to that would be that Strange New Worlds is not doing that. Now, is Strange New Worlds basically old Trek again? Yes, it is, and yet it's been updated correctly. So you can do it where you recognize the story, but it doesn't feel repetitive. That's the difference. That's where I feel like Alien Romulus, from what I've been told and from what I've read of the story, that is the first half is trying to do something new, and then it feels like they said, okay, well, you have to include certain things because we want to have a lot of callbacks, and they got caught up in that.
Yeah, and like for me, I remember the first time I sat down and read the Aliens vs. Predator book with the security guard, the Asian woman, right? I remember reading that and thinking, wow, you know what? This is a new take on an alien story. And I really loved it because even though it was an alien predator story, it wasn't like the Aliens vs. Predator movie was so fucking bad. But this one book that I read, that graphic novel was amazing because it was basically like, oh yeah, you have settlers and they didn't know that this world is a hunting ground that the predators use. So the predators come through and they seed the planet with aliens so they can go hunting. But you know what? They didn't realize there was humans there. And now you're in this situation where it's like, yeah, the predators have shown up to go hunting. The humans are going through this nightmare situation with the aliens. And now you're in the middle. The humans are in the middle between, aliens on one end and predators on the other. And I was like, yeah, this is perfect. And even the way it concludes and everything, I was like, it was such a different take while also using a lot of these elements. So maybe you're right. Maybe it's a lack of creativity not to be able to do something new, but you're also stuck with the fact that studios always want to call back, like you said, on old material. They always want to be like, make something new, but also remind people that, of these other things we've done.
Yeah, and there is I've said this before, that there's certain stuff that I just accept that's not made for me anymore, and that's fine. I don't have any problem with that.
You know what? I wonder if any of it
now.
is. I wonder if any of it's made for us.
Oh, no. I know. Strange New Worlds, again, will be my answer. Of course there is. No, there is definitely a way that you can do it. Severance is a very kind of prisoner type of show. It feels like a very old-style show, and yet it's been immensely successful. But it's certainly not a quick, action-y show by any stretch. It's a very deeply philosophical and kind of,
I've started watching analysis of the Arcane show, and I'm even more impressed with their writing now because there's shit that I didn't catch where I'm like, holy fuck. I was like, they did do that. And like little things that I'm like, man, it's like, yeah, I do love like analysis and theory on some of these things. Like sometimes it's annoying, but on certain things, like when something is written really well and then, people go back and look at it and can point out to you all the things that they did to make it so well, like make it work out so well. You're just like, oh, wow, that's genius. I was like, now I understand.
I've started doing the same thing, except for me. It's analysis of older video games. I've become really
interesting.
into watching. Like, there's a couple of channels.
Like
that
what?
I'm
Well, like what
subscribed
kind of
to.
games? So like, how old are we talking? Like not Joust, right?
No. Mostly, it's generally been kind of around the 2000s, mid 90s, 2000s, when video games were sort of shifting away from the basic Super Mario formula and starting to tell stories.
Okay.
And there's a lot of stuff in that time when there wasn't really formulas in place yet, where there was weird experimentation. There was different ways of doing storytelling. There's also just games that are so janky and weird, but their backstory is fascinating. For example, I just watched one. There's two channels I've been watching a lot lately on. One is the guy's, I don't know if it's his real name, but it's the guy goes by Sean's son, Irish guy. So his accent makes everything better too. So there's that, and then there's I believe she's Irish too. She's Irish or Scottish. The female woman that I listened to. What is her name? Her name is.
Wait, did you just call her a female woman?
Oh yeah, I guess I did. Sorry. Yeah.
You know what? That almost, because it wasn't wrong, it almost went right through my brain, and then just right at the very end, my brain was like, "Wait a minute, a female woman?" I was like, okay.
Well, you know
Got
what? I don't. I'll be honest. I've never liked calling people male and female. I just even
So
pre
you,
all
so
the
you called them. So you called her both.
Well, no, man or woman. Well, so I default to going, oh, don't say female, because it's so it's like talking about a person as a number. I just don't like it.
Well,
I'd
you
rather
can't
refer to
call
them
them. You
differently.
can't call her a vagina recipient.
No, that's why I went to woman. So yeah,
There you
Tango Mushi is the other one.
Oh,
And
wow, Tango Mushi. Okay.
yeah, and she does a lot of analysis of horror games, like
From like the 2000s.
or ones that were kind of overlooked.
Okay.
Like the Fatal Frame games, the Siren games, and she gets into kind of analysis on the themes.
Oh,
and,
like was it Phantasmagoria? Did you ever play that?
yeah, stuff like that. Yeah, stuff like
Okay,
that.
yeah.
And one of the things that she highlights is probably a lot of the reason these games were overlooked or forgotten is because some of them are very directly dealing with female trauma and things that, the gamers of the time would have been like, I don't get it.
Oh
and
yeah,
just
because
gone right past.
Phantasmagoria was a female lead, and her husband would think was being haunted, and that was like one of the things of that game. Yeah,
Right.
for an adolescent boy, you're kind of looking at it going, I don't know, this game's for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Sean's son tends to cover really janky and broken PS1 games and try to see if there's anything good about them, which kind of mirrors my whole B movie thing.
Oh yeah,
But he just
I was gonna
talks
say,
about
that's right up your alley.
he just talked about one called Pax. Well, he didn't. I think the video's 3 years old. I just saw it, but he
Okay.
talked about one called Pax Corpus, and what it started as, and it's very obvious once you know this and look at it, you could probably guess. Actually, you know what? Hold on a minute. I'm going to show you the game, and see if you can guess what it was supposed to be originally. Hold on, Pax. Yeah, look up Pax Pax Corpus Corpus. Just look at the cover art. And you tell me if those if the characters in that seem of something that you're familiar with. Just take a look. Don't read anything about it. Just look at it and see if anything seems familiar.
Okay, hold on 1 second. This is
That's
like
PS1.
vaguely Aeon Fluxy.
Ah, you hit it. It was Aeon Flux. They started off and they were making a licensed game, and then at the last minute after they built the entire game, they lost the license. And they were like, well, then we're just going to change the name and slightly modify her. But otherwise,
Oh yeah,
it was a built game. And when you see the game played, it makes sense that it could have been a very good Aeon. Well, okay, it wasn't going to be very good because the developer, he tends to cover this French company called Cryo something. And they don't make very good games generally, but they make fascinating games.
Yeah.
And so when you watch him play, it's like, oh yeah, this would make, if somebody made a modern version of this as an Aeon Flux game, it makes complete sense. Like they got all the weirdness of it and all that type of thing. Even some of the music sounds like it's mimicking it because they probably had it, it probably was distinct enough. So yeah, they just rebranded it or debranded it, I guess. And then like Tango Mushi was talking about this Japanese game called Garage, which only recently was even playable on anything. And it's such a weird, strange, Giger-esque, but via Japan type of game. Like it's disgusting and vile and like rusty and weird. And yet it's sort of hopeful. It's a strange game. It's a strange game.
What was that game that was like no flesh should it was a first person shooter. It was like no flesh left behind or something like that.
Yeah, the one
and
where you have
like
to
it was a bad it wasn't a good game, but visually it was stunning. Do you know what I'm talking about? Where you were like a
Oh, yeah.
bearded Jesus-looking character.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the game. Was that on PS1?
I
I'm
played on the
trying to
computer.
remember. Oh, wow. Hold on. Let's see. It's not called No Flesh Left Behind. It's got to be called something else. That I can't find that one.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes when you're younger, you'd be like, you look through the cheap, bin of computer games, and you would find some genuinely interesting looking games, and you'd play them for a bit, and you'd be like, I want this to be better than it is,
Right.
because they always had something that was really neat. And the thing is, the visual style of that game was awesome. It was a beautiful looking first person shooter. It was so stylistic.
I think.
But
I think
it
the
didn't
Sean
play
Sean
great.
guy did all the every Ghost in the Shell game that's ever been released. He went through them all.
Oh,
and determined
MDK.
that-
That's another one. Remember MDK?
Oh yeah, Murder Death Kill. Oh yes, I played MDK.
Yeah, that was such an
endlessly.
interesting looking game. You had that big head on the
Yeah.
suit.
Yeah, there's a good
You know?
documentary. I can't remember who did it on that game. That's really good. But I don't remember who did it. That I watched because there's a lot of backstory to that game too. On how it was made, and then they made the second one, and
I never played the second one.
yeah, I never did either. Apparently, it's good. I just never played it. I think I'd moved on to other things by then. It's kind of like the Carmageddon game.
We're talking about games, so we should totally.
Oh,
mention the fact that-
would you like to talk about Soul Squad Squid? Kill the Justicar Lake or whatever it's called.
What an Outriders DC?
Yeah.
So some of you, if anyone's listening, I'll start with that. If anyone's listening and has listened to previous shows, I always start with that, right? Because it might just be the two of us. I mean, and that's fine. Because that's
no,
fine.
there's at least two other people we know of.
Give me a coughing
Yeah.
fit. If anyone's listening, Joe and I, for those who don't know, a while back played a game that was truly awful called Outriders, and we played it all the way through because the gameplay was so.
We should say, hold on.
good.
We should
What?
say, the narrative was truly terrible.
Oh, the story was terrible.
Yeah, the story.
And,
The
visually,
gameplay was fine.
it was like kind of lazy, but the play, the actual combat of it was so much fun.
Yes.
And we just played all the way through it, not giving a shit about what the hell the story was. In fact, mocking it became the most fun as the gameplay was so good.
Yeah.
So right now we're in a holding mode because really we're just waiting for Sniper Elite 5. Is it 5?
Sniper Elite Resistance.
Yeah, we're waiting for the new Sniper Elite to come out so we can kill Nazis, which is one of our favorite pastimes. More now than ever. And we're just kind of in a holding pattern, and something popped up on the was it PlayStation Plus thing for free, and it was the Suicide Squad. Suicide Squad kills the Justice League.
Yeah, Kill the Justice League or something.
Which is made by the same people who made Gotham Knights. Which Gotham Knights was one of those games that the story was kind of what, and we just mocked our way through it. But honestly, I will say one thing for that game, Gotham Knights. I have so much respect for the Red Hood now. I love that character. And I have this version of the Red Hood in my head now. And it's at that point that, like, my wife has heard me say enough shit playing that game that the Red Hood is also in her head now. So, like, the other day, I don't know what I saw, but I was like, I'm not shooting them, I'm just putting them to sleep. And she was like, putting them to sleep forever. Like, it was just, and she said it in, like, the Red Hood voice.
Sensational.
And I was like, and she never even played the game. All she did was, like, hear me play it in the background, and it got into her head. So I do find a weird enjoyment in that when you have these games where, like, the story's not that great, and there's things of it that are actually kind of laughable, but then the gameplay gets you through. And, like, Gotham Knights, the gameplay was pretty good. So those people did this new Suicide Squad game. And at first, I thought that the controls were too complicated and there's too much shit going on. But then once you start to kind of get a vibe of, like, what you really need, the powers you really need to utilize, it made me realize that it was like an Outriders game. The combat is really fun. And I don't really give too much of a shit about what's going about otherwise. But then the thing that won me over, not even to the story, but to kind of the sense of humor, because they were trying really hard early in the game to go for this, like, kind of kooky, bastard comedy kind of thing. There's a sequence in the game early on where do you know what sequence I'm talking about?
In Justice League, you mean?
No, in the new Suicide Squad game. I'm wondering if it was the same moment for you.
Where it became funny?
Yeah, the moment where you were like, okay, you know what? I kind of like this game. And it was a sequence that happens like a cutscene.
I'm trying to remember. I think I know. I forgot it, but I do remember laughing at something early on. What was it? I don't remember. Go ahead, tell me.
It was I'll just say Penguin.
Oh, mine is before that. But
really?
You know why? Because mine's bug related.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So in terms of the story, yes, where they're shocking the Penguin.
Yes, there's a sequence in there where they capture the Penguin to use him for their army. Their
Wait, you're telling me it's not the Riddler hat? The Riddler hat was the first one for me. Where
I thought the Riddler hat was silly, but the thing that really made me enjoy the humor was when they stuck Riddler with like one of the head bombs, and then Riddler tried.
You mean Penguin?
Fucking Penguin. Penguin tries to get away, and so they tell Command. They tell what the fuck is her name?
Waller.
They tell Waller, and she shocks the Penguin, and the Penguin falls down unconscious. At which point, the Captain Boomerang, who's fucking
Each
awful.
of them starts to say, "No, he's running.
He's still running. He's Herculean. He got back up," and they just keep shocking the Penguin, and he's just laying there like shaking. And at that point, I was like, yeah, and they keep shocking the Penguin, and I laughed. I did laugh. I was like, okay. I was like, you kind of won me over with your dumb humor. Yeah. I was like, I could see that. It's amusing. And then King Shark takes it too far and ruins the fun for everybody. I thought that was amusing. And I actually like King Shark. I didn't think I was gonna.
You picked the Red Hood of the game. I said that.
I think that must be what it is. Yeah. I think I gravitate to that type of character.
Yeah, no, you got
but it's a weird game because Harley Quinn, it doesn't feel quite Harley Quinn. I don't know what it is. Problem. It's almost like they tried to amalgamate the comic Harley Quinn and the movie Harley Quinn. Yeah, it's a weird, but she's basically Batman. Like they just gave her the Batman powers, and the explanation for it was that they stole all the equipment from the Justice League Hall of Justice.
yeah.
Which I find funny.
The interesting part is I don't remember what Deadshot steals to give himself a jetpack, but I remember him having a jetpack in the comics, so that wasn't really even a stretch. I don't think does King Shark steal anything?
he gets the jetpack from something there. Yeah, the jetpack is
right,
but
in the comics, I remember he could just kind of jet around at times.
Could he? I don't remember.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it was that jetpack, but he could.
Yeah, jetpack. He gets a jetpack, and was it Captain Boomerang gets a Speed Force gauntlet,
which explains why he's warping around because he never had that ability. So that makes sense. Yeah. And then she grabs the bat floater thing.
Yeah, the bat drone and the batarang grapple hook thing. Yeah. So she's Batman. Yeah, and then King Shark. I don't think he gets anything. I think he's just big and magical already. So
I think he takes Riddler's hat. I think that's the thing. He takes.
He does. He takes Riddler's hat. Yeah,
which is great because he doesn't need anything. He's already got all his power.
And honestly, I dressed him up as Superman, and the second I put the Superman outfit on him, I was like, I'm good. I was like, this is what you're wearing for the rest of the game. You're Super Shark.
Yep.
Yeah. Yes, works perfectly. So it's weird. I don't think it's a good game, but I found it to be a fun game. Like when I first started, I was kind of groaning about it, and then once I started kind of rolling through, I was like, hey, you know what? Actually, this is kind of fun. I was like, the combat is kind of fun. Like you just bouncing around this destroyed city, fucking fighting aliens left and right and shit like that. And you know, I can kind of understand why it wasn't a big hit.
Well, I did a 5 on it.
Okay.
And what I said was, and I didn't talk much because 5s I don't do very detailed, but the thing I said, the biggest impression I had out of it was that if this had been a $30 game, I don't think it would have been reviled the way it was. I think people would have let a lot go if it was 50%. Yeah, it was a $60 game. I think actually it might have been $70.
Yeah.
But it was full price.
Yeah, and the thing is, and they had all these plans to like sell you other characters and to have expansions and things like that.
And here's the thing about it is it is a perfect example because this is the studio that made all the Arkham games, which are really good. They're really good single player Batman games. Yeah. I mean, that's why they got to make this is because they made really good Batman games. But instead of just being able to make the games the way they wanted to make them, they had to make a live service game. I don't know that they ever intended it to be exactly what this is, where it had to keep expanding with different characters. If they just made a smaller scale game, sold it for half the price, and not had season passes and not all that crap, just sold it and sold it for less. And you know what? They could have made it look a little worse, because I just realized the graphics are not that big. Like, I don't care if I can see my reflection thing. So we've talked about this. Like, I don't need all that stuff. And the game doesn't suddenly become better just because it's shinier.
Well, I mean,
this
listen,
is a good example.
We were playing GTA Online, which is how old
Right.
at this point? And it was
Yeah,
still
which
fun.
connected faster in some
Yeah,
cases
it did.
than
Yeah.
Suicide Squad did. You know, it's not good.
But I mean,
but for free? But if I paid $30 for this game, would I be upset? No.
listen, free is a good price. I'll take free.
Well, no, but what I'm saying is if we'd shelled out $30 on this thing,
Oh, we wouldn't have cared. Yeah.
I don't think we would say, oh, this was a waste.
Yeah, but if we
we'd
paid
spent
70, we'd be like, really? For this? Yeah.
Yes. So that's what
Yeah.
I'm saying is, and I think a lot of that is because they, had all these expandable characters, which takes a lot more work. Did it really need to have 4 characters? Probably not.
You know
probably
what?
Could have done it with 2.
Here's the thing. I'm fine with 4, but I think that they went into it knowing they wanted to expand.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So you have to then
Yeah.
charge more to, Yeah.
Yeah, I listen. You and I both know that live service games don't really make people happier.
And there's a great irony, by the way, in that as soon as the Sniper Elite game comes out, which is really a retread of, I think, 4.
It doesn't matter.
We don't care, and we're going to ditch this thing, which is free, to pay money to play that because it's that good.
Yeah. And if you told me you didn't want to pay for Sniper Elite, I'd just buy it for you. It'd be like, we're playing.
Oh no, I already pre-ordered it with the 2-day early unlock because I want to play it as soon as possible.
Dude, I need to get on that then.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Oh no. I knew because I know we're gonna play it, and that includes the season pass. And all. We're gonna play all that stuff, so I don't care.
Oh yeah, and the thing is, if the games in your life that are good, because you will inevitably replay them. And the thing is, when I think of the games that you and I have replayed, we've replayed the Sniper Elite games, I think 3 times.
And this, by the way, because there are people who are like, oh, they're just reusing what. And you know what? The reason I am okay with that is because I don't have to worry about being broken on the first day. Fine, reuse your engine because I know it works. I just want to play more of this game. I don't want you to suddenly reinvent the wheel.
And that's kind of the thing. It's like if what I played was good enough and I enjoyed it, and I'm okay with just give me more of it. Give me, just expand it in there, or like I said, reuse the maps in interesting ways. And if you have to go back to all the same cities that you went to from the other games, and because there's a different situation, you're still going to have different people running around at different times.
Yeah.
Like, we played the last one like 3 times, and it was different every time because you have different shots, you have different luck. Mm-hmm. There's just different NPCs moving around at different times. I mean, GTA Online. I mean, I drive through that city. We were playing that for a while there, and it was driving through that city every night, and it was always different.
Yeah,
there was always weird shit going on. So I think that everyone is so driven for something new, and they don't stop to realize that sometimes you don't need so much new, you just need something that's good. And I know that sounds very vague, and it is very vague, but it's the idea of like, go on.
No, in terms of this game, imagine if Rocksteady had just made another beat 'em up, and it was just that the 4 characters had different combat styles, which I wonder if that's where this started. If they were going to make another one that was like Batman with the combo system, and you were fighting on the ground, not jumping around all the time, and not with all the stupid jetpacks and everything, but you were just running around in different areas, fighting different, enemies in the combat system, and the combat would change depending on which character it was. I could easily see that game.
It's funny because I started playing Overwatch in the morning, Overwatch 2. Mm-hmm. I play it first thing in the morning, and it's basically in lieu of coffee, because I light up my adrenaline system like crazy, and after I walk away, I'm like, whoa, I'm awake. And what's funny to me is, so they did Overwatch, which was a paid-for game, and then they were like, you know what? Let's do the second one for free, and then we'll just make lots of add-ons if people want them. And so, other people buy lots of things. I think I told you my son went crazy when they did the Transformers add-on where you can make everything look
Oh
like
yeah,
Transformers.
yeah.
But like, you know what? I log in and I play for like maybe 2-3 games in the morning, and then I fuck off. And it's like, yeah, I'm perfectly happy with just more of this. If tomorrow they were like, hey, we're gonna make a new one, well, they don't even need to, because they keep adding maps and shit to this. It doesn't even matter. But it's the idea that, like, think of how many first-person shooters that you played throughout your life where like you were playing the same maps over and over again for like years. You know, like think of the death matches you did when you were younger, and it's like, yeah, you didn't care. It was the play that made the game.
Yeah.
You know, and then if you heard there was a new map, you were like, cool, but otherwise you just kept playing. You know, and you were willing to retread territory, especially if it was really good. You didn't, you know, I think we as a society, we have this absolute obsession with the next best thing and the new and pushing the boundaries and more and better graphics and this and that. And it's like, you know, I think you'd find that if you just slowed the fuck down, that it doesn't need to be that amazing to be amazing. And I know it sounds like it's weird, but it's like sometimes you don't need to have cutting edge graphics if the gameplay is very good. I mean, like we were just talking about Outriders, and the fact that Outriders looked silly. It looked like it was designed by like an angry metalhead 12-year-old, right? And the story was a joke. But the gameplay was so good. That game did two things that were genius. The gameplay was excellent. The combat and everything was excellent. And then they created a system of gear where mixing different gear gave you very different results. And I think that is what really grabbed you, because you started fucking experimenting with like all kinds of combinations.
Yeah.
And it had a direct result on the combat. You know, so it wasn't just like an extra thing where like, you know, very often I feel in games like you change your gear up and you don't really feel it. Whereas in Outriders, your gear could really change the way you played the game. And it's
absolutely.
like, it looks silly. The story was dumb, but we played it like crazy because the play was so good. And I think
this is
maybe
what
sometimes
I've talked about with Stalker 2. The reason it's so good is because it's the same. It's recaptured what the first game was, and I genuinely, that's a very specific type of. It's the same game with a new coding. It is kind of the Sniper Elite thing. Stalker 2 is basically the same map, more or less same map, bigger. You know, you can go further into areas, but same locations, almost the exact type of gameplay, including the jankiness, which I'm fine with. You know, the anomalies, most of the monsters are pretty much the same. They may have been retooled here or there, but they're basically, the controller is the same. The bloodsucker is tougher, but it's the same. The mutant dogs are the same. The little gnome people are the same. The gravity anomalies, they've added some new ones, but it's foundationally the same thing.
Who are the little gnome people?
They're very much okay. You never saw.
I'm just
Phantasm.
curious now.
They're oh man, they literally what are they called? Hold on, Stalker 2 mutants. What are they called? They look like little evil leprechauns. I don't know how else to describe them.
They're bad.
They're bad. Yeah, the Burr, Burer. Yeah, okay, here.
Okay.
Here. I'll send you this page.
I'm so curious.
So the Snorks are the same. I don't know if they were called Snorks in the old game.
The
but the people with the
Snozzberries
gas
are the
masks,
same.
Yeah, I mean, most of these enemies, I'm looking through the list. The zombie soldiers, yep, that was the
Oh
Mars.
yeah, look at these little guys.
See
Oh
those
god.
guys?
Yeah, I had a very different. You called them gnomes, and I was like in my head, I thought it was something far more charming.
No. Yeah, the pseudo giant, I believe, was in the first one. There weren't
Look
many
at
of
these
them.
fuckers.
Yeah, but the flesh things, I think were there. I'm pretty sure rats. Rats weren't. The wild pigs, I don't think were either. Bloodsuckers. So most of them, the poltergeist. I remember that.
The chimera looks fucking frightening.
Yeah. Those I'm pretty sure were in the first one. But that's what I mean is most of this game is a retread.
Ooh, yeah.
Even the weapons are basically the same.
I don't want to encounter any of these motherfuckers.
Oh
Jesus
man,
Christ.
I got hit in the thing. I've actually started recording and publishing because I just think that there's so much.
I'm surprised it took you this long.
I am too. But the thing is that it's not a game that reviews serve well because the reviews don't tell you anything. You have to actually just see, and I'm just playing.
Oh
I'm
yeah,
not,
yeah.
You know, and I was just walking along, and suddenly, I think it was boars the flesh monsters and dogs all descended on me at once, just randomly. And I was like, uh-oh. And luckily I was near a bunch of trains. So I jumped up into a train car and then I just let them start fighting each other. Because once I was unreachable, they just started tearing into each other and I just waited until they wore themselves down. But I'm like, this is the thing that's great about this game. You don't know what's going to happen. But that was the first game too, is you could just you could walk for 30 minutes and all you hear is the wind. And then suddenly it turns like into a nightmare. It's just great.
And it goes to that idea that it's the play. And honestly, it's the world. In this game, you like the gameplay and you like the world. And you just want to spend more time in that world. It doesn't need to be that much better for you to want to be back in that world.
Right.
You know, and in like World of Warcraft, I spent so much time in the World of Warcraft. And the thing is, it wasn't cutting edge graphics, but the story was fun. I found the gameplay to be fun. I did it with friends. You know, you had a very different experience than I. Well, but you did it a lot too. Yeah, and that's the thing, is that it was a fun world to be in. Mm-hmm. And I think that sometimes, I just think they miss the fun on some of these things. They're so focused on making it cutting edge and look at this and it's so incredible. And you're like, yeah, but is it fun?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, we talked about the fact that the problem with the Suicide Squad game so far is just they just won't stop adding things to it.
Oh, yeah, they keep giving you new abilities.
You know? Yeah, it's like, all right, guys.
Am I going to use
enough.
this? I keep using abilities by accident because there's so many of them.
I was going to say, I'm throwing grenades accidentally because I can't remember what circle does. So I hit it just to see, and suddenly I'm throwing grenades. But honestly, I don't know when I'm ever going to use them.
You know what? I'm getting really good, though, with just focusing on like 2 or 3 abilities and being like, this is all I'm using. I don't care.
Now that we have the kind of the big ability where you can kind of kill a bunch at once.
Yeah.
I don't need anything else. I just need my guns, and I know what I have to charge up, and then I know I can get into the middle of something and blow it up, and that's it. That's it.
Yeah, and honestly, this is the first time I've played a game where I feel like if King Shark was about 2 feet shorter, he might actually look a lot like me.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
He's got that body type. Yeah, it's funny because you were like, I thought you were going to play Harley Quinn, and I was like, you know what? I looked at Harley Quinn and I looked at.
Well,
King
only
Shark,
because she's very familiar for a Gotham Knights type of game.
Yeah, I know.
She has a
but
Batman
I find
skill set.
Harley Quinn so obnoxious.
Yeah, that would have been. I wish you could just shut up the players you're not playing.
Yeah,
so much
I mean, but Captain Boomerang and Harley Quinn are very annoying. So.
Very annoying, and that's what a lot of people complained about was they won't shut, and they don't shut up. So
yeah. So.
But the gameplay has grown on us, and the world is
and
neat.
I do enjoy it. And I mean, it doesn't mean that I'm not going to drop it in about 2 seconds when Sniper Elite comes out.
It won't even be 2 seconds. The day I can preload it, I'm just going to erase the other one. I mean,
but you know what? And honestly, it brings up the best point, which is
listen.
Why do we play games?
January 27th, when we finish playing whatever game that night.
Yeah.
If it's that game, as soon as you sign off, my next step is to delete it and then be ready to go on the next one. That's what it's going to be. I'm just telling you that's what it is.
It gets to the main part of the idea, which is why do we play these games? And the thing is, at the end of the day, you play a game for entertainment. You play a game for distraction. You play a game for enjoyment. And at the end, it doesn't matter what you're playing as long as you're having that. I mean, for video games have become something different for me because like I use Overwatch in the morning as coffee. And then otherwise, I play at night with you. I mean, like for me, it's a social entertainment experience where you and I get the chance to do stupid things and talk a lot of shit. I mean, that's basically what it is. I mean, there have been nights where you and I have been playing a game, and we've got nothing done because we literally were standing someplace in the game doing something stupid, talking shit. And it's like we're hanging out, and we're always looking for a nice place to hang out. Where they won't kick us out right away. It's almost like when you're younger looking for a diner in the middle of the night. You know? But as long as it's entertaining. And I think that's the thing, is like when you're looking for a game, the core of what you want is to be entertained, distracted. You know, you want to be someplace you like. You want to do things that you like. And you don't need the best graphics for that. And you don't need the most cutting edge machine for that. You just need the right kind of gameplay for you, or the right world. I mean, there's people who swear by Skyrim, and I wish that a game like that was co-op because it would be really funny for you and I to savage a fantasy world together, an open world like that, you know.
Yeah,
but
sure.
very smartly they've kept that single player. But there's
Yeah.
people who
Well, it's
love
like
that
Deus
game.
Ex. I'll play Deus Ex all the time, even the original version without any upgrades, and I don't care.
It's a beautiful looking world.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. It's the
So-
totality of it, the experience.
yeah. So it's but it's not a world I want to live in. Let's be very clear about that.
No.
Man, that's a good question though. Is there any game that you would want to take off into? I have said I have dabbled with Skyrim in the past, and I have been. It's tempting. It's tempting. It's a really beautiful fantasy world to just kind of fuck off into. But it's not the safest place either. God, yeah. Is there any game
No.
world that you'd want to take off into?
Is there a game world I want to take off into?
Yeah.
I have to think about it.
I thought when I was younger, I would have told you that I would have taken off into the World of Warcraft, because my wife and I were already playing, and it was one of those things where it fit us. Like, I knew the landscape. I thought it was fun, and in my mind, I think my version of what that world looked like in a real way was far more interesting than I think what they did with it. Like, when I saw the World of Warcraft movie, I was less interested in that world, because they did this, whereas in my mind, I want to actualize that world, but keep those over the top, colors, where everyone's bright blue and,
Right.
But now, no. I mean, now I look at that and I'm like, no, I don't know. I mean, Skyrim, like I said, it's a sexy world, especially if you like fantasy. But yeah, I don't know. But think about that. Yeah, think about it. Get back to me if you can.
Well, I'm scrolling through. I'm scrolling through the greatest games of all time to see if there's any that have a world I'd want to live in. And so far, it's a no. I mean, I'm up to the 20. I'm up to the top 20 now. Hold on.
Yeah.
No. I mean, Super Mario doesn't count. That's not a world. No. You know what?
Yeah.
Actually, Deus Ex wouldn't be a bad world to live in if you were enhanced.
I don't know, man.
I mean, every game is okay if you have a bunch of money.
I was watching.
Mass Effect. Ooh.
Well, I mean, the world
pre the apocalypse.
Yeah,
sure.
Okay, pre-apocalypse, the Mass Effect world is pretty cool, because it's kind of like Star Trek-y.
That's probably a good one right there.
And there's sexy aliens and all kinds of weird shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, I could totally see that.
That might be it. That one's the most. That one's the one where it starts out where things are the best with quotes around it, where it's not just complete misery.
Well, the first two games are good, and then the
well,
third game is.
I'm thinking the first game. The first game. I'm thinking Mass Effect 1.
Yeah,
Is
one
the one I
and
would-
2. I thought the world was fine. It's when you get to Mass Effect 3 where it's everything's at war. It's Mass Effect universe at war, right?
Yeah.
But that's a great world. That's a game that you know what? I replayed Mass Effect the trilogy at least 3 times. I fucking love that game. And I would go if I suddenly found myself with an abundance of time and I was in a gaming mood, I would go back and still play that game. Because that game, as old as it is still better than a ton of the fucking games that are around now. And I think that's the thing. It's it's not just about making it the most cutting edge looking game there is. It's you gotta do more than that. Yeah.
Oh, here we go. Here's one that says, what are the video games we'd like to live in? All right, Animal Crossing, that's kind of a cheating one because there's really no...
I've heard that a few times.
Pokemon, no, because they're always trying to kill each other. I don't want to live in that. Minecraft, that's not a world. It's blocks. I don't want to live in a block world. Super Mario Brothers isn't a world. Stop. Legend of Zelda, yeah, it seems like Ganon's always trying to wipe the place out, so maybe not. Stardew Valley, yeah, okay. That's like Animal Crossing, but there's no real opposition there unless you go into the mines, so I guess technically.
I mean, there's people who would take off into the world of Eve if they could.
Well, yeah, that's a good one too. Except the economy will kill you, literally.
Yeah.
The Witness I never played. Kingdom Hearts. No, I don't want to live in a Disney IP. Fuck you. No.
What I was trying to say was recently, there was a lecture from Cory Doctorow about the dangers of Musk, and they also I can't remember the name of the Greek guy they all spoke to, but there's a big talk. You can find it on YouTube, and in there, yeah,
I just found another article and 2 of them in there: Mass Effect and Eve. There you go.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, and in there, Cory Doctorow quoted something that William Gibson said, which is that cyberpunk was always meant as a warning, not as a was it not as
An
as
aspiration.
Yeah, not as an aspiration. That's essentially what he said, right? It was meant as a warning, not an aspiration.
Sure.
And the idea is that you've got a lot of tech bros that are like, let's make the world look like cyberpunk,
Yeah.
And so like when I look at Dust X, I look at it and I'm kind of like, yeah, I don't know if I want to live. I don't know if I want to live in that world because it is very cyberpunk. And whereas I love stories set in cyberpunk, it's also like, cyberpunk is almost like it's almost like post-apocalyptic in a way. I've come to realize, you know what I mean? Where it's
Okay. Here's one for me.
What's
I've
that?
never played this game, but now that I've heard of it, I might. It's called East Shade from 2019. It's a game where the player gets to take on the role of a traveling painter on a beautiful remote island. Okay. Yeah. That's the whole game, is you paint things for people. All right. Yeah.
Interesting.
I get to be a happy artist. Okay.
What system is that on?
Since it's the first time I've ever played it, let's see. East Shade. Let's take a look. 2019 game. Windows, PlayStation 4, Xbox One. Oh, all the people are animals, so they're animal people. Okay.
Oh, there you go.
All right. East Shade has no combat mechanics. Its gameplay involves complete quests given various NPCs. In most here you go. In most instances, quests involve doing good deeds, helping people see the error of their ways.
I didn't expect it to be a combat game. I always say that to
Well,
my kid too. There's one of my kids is playing the Poppy Playtime games, which are like horror puzzles.
Yeah.
But I always kind of joke around with them because they know I play first-person shooters, where they're like, "Oh my god, I have this thing and this monster is chasing me," and I'm like, "Use a grenade launcher." They're like, "I don't have a grenade launcher."
2077. Why would you want to live in that? It's miserable.
No.
Portal.
Oh, isn't it the same world as fucking Half-Life?
Yeah, the Half-Life comes up a lot too. I'm like, you want to live in Half-Life?
Yeah.
Okay. Where the Combine is.
People have a.
Yeah, they're not. They're thinking of the beauty of the world, not living in it.
I think sometimes, I don't think they think of the actual mechanics of living in it.
They're thinking of design of a world as opposed to the function of living in one. They're not thinking this thing out. Yeah, they're not thinking about that correctly. So.
Well, anyway, sorry, I didn't have anything to talk about today. So, what do you got?
Well, I have a movie review that is a little different from the usual stuff. In that, it. Oh boy, you know what? I just have to go through
the only way it would be different is if you came to me and you said, "I saw a children's musical." Otherwise, everything is so different all the time that I mean.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's kind of a moot statement for you at this point because everything is so different.
Yeah, I guess that's.
You know what?
That's
Actually, when I'm the most shocked by you is when you come and you're like, "Hey, I just saw this pop movie that's a best it's a top 10 pop movie that just came out." Like I'm more shocked by that. What did you watch? Oh man, you watched something
Substance?
a while back. No, not Substance. Although you saw Substance, Demi Moore won a Golden Globe for that.
Yeah, I did
Shit's
see
amazing.
that. And she deserves it.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. But what I'm saying is, you saw a conventional movie. I think it's what it is that you saw a conventional movie a while back, and I was genuinely shocked that you saw it, and I was like, oh wow, that does surprise me. But you're in that Noel Fielding crowd at this point, and so am I. Right.
Well,
so Noel Fielding, if you don't know, he was Richmond in IT Crowd, and he's in the Mighty Boosh, and he was in the Baking Show.
Yeah.
And he's a really creative weirdo. And when he does weird shit, you're like, okay, I expect you to do weird shit because you're kind of a weird dude, and you're creative and you're weird, and that's what you are. So it's kind of like, for me to surprise you, like for me to show up dressed a certain way that would surprise you, I'd have to show up in like a suit or something like that, something really conventional. You'd be like, oh yeah, that's not.
Oh, was it Madame Web?
It might have been. Oh, maybe it was Madame Web. Yeah. Whereas like with you, it's like I expect you to see weird shit. So when you show up and you're like, I've got a weird movie, and I'm like, okay, that's normal for you.
Well, it's not. It's weird in what it ended up being. I think that's the better way to say it. So basically, a while ago, I don't even remember how long it was, probably 5-6 months ago, I picked up a movie from Vinegar Syndrome, really just based on the artwork, because it looked like and sounded like a Hammer horror film, but done by an Italian. And the name of the movie is from 1960s, black and white, and it's called The Playgirls and the Vampire. right?
Hold on
Now-
a second.
Yeah.
The Plague Girls and the Vampire.
And the vampire. Or
Okay.
in Italian, La Ultima Preda del Vampiro.
Is it a
Right.
love story?
Well, okay, it's Dracula. It's
Oh, okay.
yeah. So it is just Dracula. But so Hammer horror films is what it reminded me of, just in the way it looked and the description and everything else. And Hammer horror films, for those who don't know, there's from about 1950 to early 70s, Hammer was just cranking out these very British Gothic horror films, like Christopher Lee, Peter Cushing, like the big names in horror. And they're just kind of very Britishly made horror films. I don't know how else to put it.
Did you say the Plague Girls?
And the vampire, yes.
I thought you said the Plague Girls.
Oh, no, I don't know what that is. If you found something with that, that's something else. No, the Playgirls. Like
yes, the play.
the magazine for women.
Playgirls. Yes.
Yeah,
Okay, got it.
Playgirls, not Plague Girls.
Ah, there you go. Five
Right,
beautiful showgirls are trapped by a storm and find refuge in a creepy old castle.
Uh-huh. The owner of the castle, a strange nobleman, has a secret laboratory in the basement and has his own plans for the girls. All right, now reading that and looking at the imagery, it looks like Christopher Lee could be playing the vampire, right? I mean, that's what it looks like. It looks like a Hammer horror film, and that's what appealed to me about it, because I saw the artwork and I read the description. I went, okay, I want to see what the Italians did with this formula.
Oh, man.
Right?
Sorry, I have to tell you that I've just realized I have a fetish. Man, look at that.
What?
I love that night outfit where it's like the off-the-shoulder robe shirt
Oh,
thing.
the transparent thing?
That's like transparent, so you can kind of
Yes.
see, but not really.
Oh, okay.
That's-
In the
man.
movie, you can see. Yeah. Okay.
Okay,
So
okay.
apparently, I saw a thing that says that this is considered the first nude vampire female movie. Apparently, it
Okay.
predates another movie that's believed to be was supposed to be
Yeah,
the
'cause,
first one,
like,
63.
Because on IMDb, it just
Yeah.
looks like it's almost transparent, which is like kind of tantalizing.
No, it's transparent. I think
okay.
they probably blurred it a little bit because there's nothing left of the imagination there. Now, there's
okay,
only
yeah.
like one or two real scenes of explicit nudity. They're very brief, which
Yeah.
makes sense. 1960.
That's,
But anyway,
honestly,
movie
it
starts
kind of
off-
makes me sad. I was totally hoping for that, tantalizing,
Well, that's the thing is when the movie started,
yeah.
because the way I expected to go was one of two ways. Either, again, a Hammer horror film made by Italians, so I wanted to see what the differences were, or Italian sleaze, which Italians are good at, and so are honestly the Spanish. Like the Spanish and Italians are good at B-movie sleaze. They're really good at it. So you'll find a lot of it. So, I mean, I reviewed a movie a while
Honestly,
ago that
I think it's because they're just not hung up on it.
I think
They're
that's
not
what it
hung
is.
up. Yeah.
Yeah, because there's nothing except there is one scene in this that I was sure I'm like, okay, this is it. This is the big scene. And then it gets interrupted, probably because they weren't willing. If this movie had been made 8 years later, the woman would have taken all of her clothes off. I'm sure of it. But they stopped it here probably because in 1960 they didn't want to push it all the way.
Man,
But
this
it's a well done scene.
This guy
Which guy?
Alfredo Rizzo, he looks like an early what's his name? Oh god.
Oh, Lucas. Oh, he's great. That guy is like
Yeah, he looks like somebody though. He looks like a modern Italian gangster actor.
yeah,
De Niro.
yeah,
He looks
yeah.
like De Niro.
Yeah, he does, kind of, and he acts
Yeah,
like it.
okay.
So basically,
Okay.
the movie starts off, we're on a bus. We have 6 characters on a bus. We've got Lucas, the guy you were just talking about, the manager. You got Frank, who's, I don't know what his role is. He's just the good-looking guy on the bus. And then we have the 5
Oh yeah.
showgirls.
Oh yeah,
right?
Rizzo's got a great fucking hat too. Look at that.
He does.
thing.
Oh, he's great top to bottom because you understand that character in 2 seconds. He is basically he is the kind of classic running scams manager for the girls. Like he
Got
doesn't
it.
abuse them. There's nothing like that. He's not mean to them really, although the one is kind of a little dim and he's doesn't really avoid calling her kind of dumb, but he's not cruel. He is looking out for them, but he's also very willing to just pull a fast one on wherever they are. For example, the movie starts off and they get stuck in a storm because they ran out of their last hotel and just didn't bother to pay. So they can't go back to it. Right? So they're going along and they get stopped by this guy and the guy says, now there's no clips because it's all in Italian. So
Yeah.
there wasn't any point, even though it sounds great to my ear. You wouldn't understand anything.
Oh, it
So-
probably sounds great in general.
It sounds beautiful. And it's all overdubbed, so it's even better. So they're going along, and a guy stops them in the road, and he says, hey, you can't go that way. The road is out because of the storm. Now, we haven't seen one drop of rain this whole time, but whatever. It's fine. It's low budget. I don't care. And he says, you're going to have to go back to the hotel is back that way. And the guy, and Lucas is like, yeah, we can't go back to the hotel. He doesn't say to the guy, he's telling us, we can't go back. And he says, well, what about that road? Where's that road going? He's like, you don't want to go up that road. That's the castle, and you don't want to go up there. And he's like, well, okay, thanks. And the guy walks away. He's like, all right, we're going up to the castle. And Frank's like, well, what do you mean? He's like, well, we can't go back to the hotel. We didn't pay. They're gonna call the cops. So let's go up to the castle. Let's see if anybody's there. If they're not, then at least we can try to get the van next to it and sleep in it. Whatever, we'll try it. So they go up there, and they encounter the groundskeeper guy, who at first seems very sinister, but you can't really tell at first. And his name is... what is his name? No, it's like... oh, God. Let's know. Whatever. I don't remember what his name is. Whatever his name is. And they encounter him, and he's like, get out. And Lucas is like, oh, no, look, the road is out, and we need someplace to stay. And, can we just, is the person who... Are you the owner of the house? He's like, no, I'm not the owner of the house. He's like, all right, well, can we talk to the owner of the house? He's like, no, get out. And then the one of the girls, Vera, seems like she's entranced, and she just goes up to the door and starts knocking, and the door opens up, and there's a woman there. And the movie presents this woman, the way everybody talks about her, is as if she's like a hideous crone. Like if you remember Robin Hood Men in Tights, the Tracy Ullman character. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Latrine.
Yeah.
They talk about this woman as if she's Latrine, when in fact she's a beautiful Italian woman. So it's ridiculous. Now, maybe in the standards of the time, they considered this not pretty, but whatever, man.
What was her name? Did she have a name?
Her name is, oh, man.
Zoltan?
Miss Balaz. No, Miss Balaz.
Oh,
Zoltan
Miss Balaz,
is the
okay.
groundskeeper. Yeah.
Zoltan
Zoltan
is
is
the groundskeeper. Let me see if I can
groundskeeper.
find a picture of her. Hold on, go on.
She's probably in those shots in the let's see. She's you got to get past all the girls, and then you'll see her in the background. Yeah, I mean it's all the.
No, I got her. You go ahead.
You got her.
Let's see.
Yeah, she's not a bad looking woman. Not the way they talk about her as if she's like a monster.
She's got the beehive hairdo.
Yeah.
No, she looks great.
Yeah, you know what? The only difference really between her and the other girls in terms of anything is she's got bigger hips. So I guess that's it. Because a lot of these women are in like those corsets that just look horribly painful.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. No, she's
again standards of the time. Yeah, she's fine. But they talk about her as if she's got a humpback. It's ridiculous. So anyway, she answers the door, and Lucas is like, "Hey, can we stay here? We can't go anywhere else." And Zoltan's like, "No, we have to get rid of them." And Balaz or Balls or whatever her name is, Balaz. The mistress of the house. The mistress of the house says, well, it's not up to us. We have to ask the keeper of the house, whose name is Count... What is his name?
Dracula.
Count...
Laculard.
No, you can't say that. That's copyright. So no,
Dracula.
his name... Count Gabor. Count Zsa Zsa Gabor. So she says, no, we have to ask the Count. His name is not actually Zsa Zsa.
No, but it's Gabor, you said.
Yeah, it is. That's his name.
Oh, yeah,
So,
Count Gabor. Yeah, you might as well
him.
call him Zsa Zsa, yeah.
You might as well. So Gabor comes out, and he looks like... They don't make him look like
Honestly,
a vampire.
He looks a bit like an uptight Italian dude.
He does. But he looks normal, except he's got this
when I saw
boss
pictures of him, he
pinstripe
just-
suit, which I wish I had. It's great. So comes out, and he says, get out. And then Vera comes up and says, we need a place to stay. And he sees her, and it's the whole thing with, like, Mina. Where, like Dracula sees Mina and it's the reincarnate.
Like, oh,
that's the story.
yes.
Yeah, he sees her and he
really
says,
like,
okay, never mind.
I really
You
like
can
your
stay.
wife. Yeah.
Yeah, he's like, and Lucas is like, oh, good. Like, nobody else, but Lucas does understand that Vera is acting strange because she goes over to where the cigarettes are and just takes one. He's like, how did you know those were there? And she's like, I don't know. I just had a hunch. She's like, something is off about you, but whatever. We need a place to stay, so we're staying here. So Gabor's like, all right, you can stay here. And he says, the only rules are you can't leave your room after dark. Don't go wandering the castle. Right? So, of course, what happens is Katya, who is the dim one, starts wandering around and she goes and she stops into Vera's room. After Vera sees Gabor staring at her. And she goes outside and she's wearing this coat. And she's like, why are you staring at me? And he's like, it's sort of hard to explain. Sorry, I wasn't really trying to peep on you. I just find you riveting. And she's like, why? He's like, don't ask me that. He's like, look, you have to leave in the morning. Don't ask me why, but you cannot be here in the morning. If you stay here any longer, you're going to be in danger. And she's like, okay. And she goes in, and right after that, Katya comes in, and she's like, boy, this is a great castle, huh? And she's just bouncing around, and she's like, I want to wander around. And Vera's like, I don't think you should. He said, don't wander around. She's like, whatever. He says that stuff. It's a neat castle. I want to see it. And she's like, but it's cold. Can I borrow your coat? And Vera's like, yeah, okay, you can borrow my coat. And so Katya's running around, and she hears a cat, and she's chasing after the cat. And the cat goes up into the attic, and she goes up there, and she sees something, and she screams. And then we cut to the next day, and she's outside dead on the ground. And Gabor shows up and says she must have fallen out of the window. That's why I told you not to wander around. This castle is very tough to navigate at night if you don't know it. It's old. It's not built with safety in mind, so you can easily fall and get hurt. So, yeah, she must have fallen out of a window because there's a window right there. Now, of course, we know that's not what happened, but it's a logical explanation to everybody else. So they're upset, but, they're okay with it as far as it seems plausible. And so they go inside, and Lucas is like, well, we have to call the cops. And Gabor's like, yep, you're right. And then he says, but we have to bury her because, she can't just leave her body here. Let's bury her. So they take her outside, and they bury her, and everybody's there except for Gabor, and they have a cross at the gravesite. So that, of course, is what we're supposed to think is, oh, okay. Because, this movie's not playing coy about what it is. It's called The Playgirls and the Vampire, right? So we already know what this is. So he's not there. And they bury her. And then we get this scene where they're rehearsing because at this point, I'm trying to figure out what their job is. Because at first I thought maybe they were under the table prostitutes. Like I couldn't tell what was going on. Because these are gorgeous women with Lucas as the manager. They ran out on their hotel bill. They're talking about, the one girl's talking about how wonderful her legs are. And everybody wants to look at them, including Frank. And I'm like, okay, what is this? And then they do this whole number where they're doing all their dancing. And they're clearly either sort of classic Vegas showgirls or burlesque dancers because this one woman is stripping down. And it's actually almost funny because she keeps peeling off layers. And because of modern sensibilities and modern movies, most of the time in a movie like today that was made where a woman was doing this, she'd take off her dress and she'd be down to bra and underwear and then she'd be nude. It'd be like a 3-step process. But because of when this is, and because you can't just go full nude, she takes off her dress and then she has like an underdress. She takes off the underdress. Then she's got a slip. She takes off the slip. And then she's got a corset. She takes off the corset. And then she's got a bra and underwear. And she goes to unhook the bra, and then Ballas comes in and says, you should all be ashamed of yourselves, like it's like a prude. And she kind of stops the whole thing. Because otherwise, I think, if this movie, again, was made 8 years later, this would have been a fully frontal nude scene, just the way these type of movies are. So whatever, Vera says, I'm not feeling real well. I'm going to go over to my room. And she's wandering around, and she comes around a hallway corner, and she sees a painting. And the painting looks just like her. At which point, Gabor comes around and says, yes, there is a bit of a resemblance there, isn't there? And she says, yeah, who is this? And he says, oh, that's the wife of my ancestor. She tragically killed herself. And you're sitting there going, okay, I've crossed oceans of time to be with you. I got it. I know what this is, right? Like, I'm telling you, it's just the Dracula story. So again, especially because I think like you probably are too. I love Coppola's Dracula, right? It's a great movie.
Oh yeah.
So this is beat for beat, pretty much Dracula to obviously without a lot of the stuff that Coppola put in, like there's no Wolfman having sex with a woman on a gravestone. That doesn't happen. This is 1960. But so, okay, yeah, I got it, right? She's the reincarnation or whatever, because she's had this strange reaction inside the castle the whole time, as if she's getting irresistibly pulled towards it or whatever. And she and Gabor seem to be kind of into each other. So there is something going on. So then that night, she hears something and she goes wandering around and she sees something she thinks, and she goes out to the gravesite and she finds that the gravesite has been dug up and there's no body. And then she looks up and she sees Gabor standing there. Oh, no.
Dim vampires.
Yeah, dim. Yeah, well, she's not so dim when she's a vampire, but we'll get to that. She's much more different. She's much different when she's a vampire. But anyway, she looks up and Gabor's standing there and she says, Gabor, what are you doing here? And he just kind of has this look like he's trying to restrain himself, and he backs away and goes into the bushes and runs. And now I'm sitting here going, okay, wait a minute. now we're getting a bit of a deviation. So is this because he had said you should really leave? And he seems to have meant it. So then I'm starting to think, oh, is this going to be a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde type of vampire where when it's during the day and he's wandering around, he's in the sunlight. So he is able to go around in the day, which I noticed. And I'm like sitting there going, okay, so he doesn't seem to be affected by daylight.
Early vampire myths said that a vampire could go out during the day.
Right. And so that's where I'm sitting there.
They were just depowered when they were in the daytime.
Yes. And he doesn't do anything during the day throughout the entire film that makes him at all extra human. Nothing. So it lines up. But the whole thing where he's different at night, where he doesn't even say anything to her, I'm sitting there going, oh, okay, this is a thing where, or like a lycanthrope type of thing, where when he becomes vampiric, it's only at night and he becomes a different person. So during the day, when he's himself, he does seem to actually care about her, but then at night, he's afraid he'll attack her. So I'm sitting here going, is the bloodlust kind of clouding his upper intelligence and he's becoming feral? Like what? This is when the movie started to become interesting because it started to go off the path. Because up to this point, this is paint by numbers Dracula, right? It really is. And so then this happens and I'm like, okay, what's going on? So then the next day, Vera's wandering around and she goes down into a locked room. She finds this secret entrance and there's this laboratory. And Gabor comes in and finds her there and he says, okay, I can explain this. And she's like, okay, explain this. And he says, there's this disease. There's a disease that haunts humanity. And I have promised myself that I will find the cure to this because it is horrible and I don't want anybody else to experience it. But he's talking, obviously what he's talking about is vampires. He doesn't say it. The word vampire is never uttered in the whole movie. But he says, yeah, there's this terrible thing. And again, now it's like Jekyll Hyde because he's got this whole like chemistry set down there. Like he's a scientist now. And he's talking about trying to find this cure, obviously for vampirism. So I'm like, okay, so this is like a Jekyll Hyde thing where he knows that this thing is terrible. It doesn't seem to affect him during the day, or at least he's not acting like something's bad. But at night he becomes some different person. So then she's like, okay, he says, you have to believe me. I don't want to harm anybody. I want to find a cure for this thing. And she's like, yeah, I believe you. And she goes off. And again, the movie is not, he doesn't suddenly kind of have a sinister look when she turns around or anything. So as far as we know, he is telling the truth. This appears to be a good by day, Hulk by night type of situation. So she wanders off. Then we cut and they're inside and Lucas is playing the piano and the other girls are practicing. And Frank comes in and he says, because they were like, where's Frank? He seems to have disappeared. And so you think he's dead. But he shows up and he says, yeah, I've been talking to people in town and they don't regard this castle or its inhabitants as good people. There have been a lot of disappearances around here. And I think maybe we should get the hell out of here. And Lucas is like, hey, man, they've got food and they're letting us sleep here. And this is the best place we found in a while. I'm not leaving until there's a reason to leave. And Frank's like, all right, I guess, but I think something's off.
They're just gonna stay there indefinitely? I thought they were like on a tour or something.
Well, they were, but Lucas kind of keys in on the fact that Gabor is into Vera. And so they're getting free food and lodging. So he's like, we're going to take this ride as far as we can because they're letting us stay here. We'll keep practicing because eventually they'll kick us out. But until they do, why should we give this up? We're having a great little vacation, really, because you get the idea that they're probably living show to show. So this is a place where they can actually stop and relax. So I get where he's coming from. He's like, yeah, we're just going to milk this until the Count gets sick of us or something. So that night, this is a hilarious scene because, again, this is as far as I guess they were willing to go in the 60s. So Lucas is in his bed and he's got a girly mag and he's making kissy faces at it. And it's just hilarious. He's like, oh, you're beautiful. And he's just looking at it. And then he goes to sleep with it tucked up next to him like a woman, which is great. And then it's funny. And then the door opens up and there's a shadow and something's creeping on him and you don't know what it is. And he looks up and he screams and it's Katya, who's completely nude. And now she's a vampire. And she's walking towards him and he's like, I know you always kind of liked me. I know you were looking at me, behind every time I turn around, I know you were looking at me. Well, now you can have me. And she starts coming forward. She's got the teeth and the whole thing. And this is low budget. So the teeth, you could see her mouth is protruding because she's wearing the dental piece. It's very funny. Gabor is the same thing. When that guy's got the dental piece in, you can see that his face doesn't look right, that he's got these big teeth in. So she comes towards him and she goes to bite him and then he screams and everybody runs into the room. And they're like, what, you had a nightmare? And they see the girly Meg and they're like, oh, geez, come on, Lucas. And he's like, no, I'm telling you, I saw Katya. She was alive. And they're like, yeah, sure you did. Go back to your girly Meg and go to sleep. And they all just think he's crazy. Right? So that night,
go back to your girly Meg and go to sleep.
Yeah, go back to your girly Meg. So that night, Vera is wandering around and she sees this plaque, this thing on the wall where because Gabor's talking about the fact that his family's history is very tormented, and that a lot of his ancestors were in disgrace because of something that happened a long time ago, and the classic kind of. They don't do the same thing where he stabs the cross like in the Coppola Dracula and renounces God, but you have the idea that that obviously vampires aren't really the favorable class anywhere they exist. They tend to be monsters. They tend to be hunted. So there's this shield that has an axe buried in it that he keeps around, I guess, for sentimental reasons. And she goes up to it and she's like kind of just touching it. And then she happens to push the spear handle. And when she does, a secret door opens up to go down into like a crypt. And she goes down and she's in this crypt and she's down there and she sees a set of sarcophaguses, or, basically the sealed tombs above ground. I think that's a sarcophagus. And one of them is the woman whose name was Margarita, was the woman who looks just like her, the ancestor. And then the other one is, I don't remember what the name that's on it, because they're like older names, and it's like the husband and wife buried next to each other. And so she's looking at this and suddenly she hears a noise and she turns around and she sees Gabor, but now of course he's in vampire mode, and he goes up to her and he grabs her and he pins her down and he bites her neck. And then she suddenly snaps awake and she's in a room and Balaz is there, the mistress of the house. And she says, yeah, you must have collapsed. We found you on the floor. And, but you seem okay now. And she's like, really? You found me on the floor here? She's like, yeah, we found you here. And she's like, oh, okay, I must have just had a bad dream. And Balaz is like, yeah, you must have just had a bad dream. And so she leaves the room. Vera goes up to the mirror and looks, and she sees 2 puncture marks on her neck. So she knows she didn't have a dream. So she's like, I have to get the hell out of here. So she grabs all her stuff and she's going to leave.
What's the vampire process in this movie, though?
Well, there doesn't appear to be one. Or let's put it this way. Apparently, it takes more than one bite. She gets her stuff and she's going to leave.
Usually, you have to drink of their blood as well.
Well, right. So she never becomes a vampire. So I'll say it like that. So she's leaving the room and she sees Gabor and she screams and she starts running. And she's running around and all this stuff starts falling in her way. And it's like stopping her from running. And he catches up to her and grabs her and she faints. And he brings her down to the crypt. And he's getting ready to drink her blood when Katya shows up and says, no, you can't have her. You bit me. You made the mistake and thought that she was me because of the coat I was wearing. But that's not my problem. You bit me. You made me into a vampire. Now I'm your wife. So fuck that bitch. And yeah, at this point, my eyes are just going like, what the hell is going on in this movie?
Lord, I love that.
So yeah, so they start fighting, and he stabs her to death and impales her and kills her. So then he brings her down to the crypt, so he's in the crypt after he kills Katya. He goes to I guess turn Vera, at which point another Gabor walks out. A second one who's it's the same actor. And he says, no, you can't do this. It's not your wife. You keep trying to recreate wife. She's not your wife. And now they weren't the same person. They're 2 of the same person because the ancestor doesn't age. And Gabor is actually a separate person who's the current count who feels guilt over the fact that his ancestor became a vampire and has been trying to cure him, has been unsuccessful. So he's just been hiding him in here and kind of letting him feed on random people until he can figure out the cure. But now the ancestor, whatever his name is, Count Ancient Guy, has crossed the line because he's actually in love with Vera. So they start fighting, and they're like throwing each other around and fighting each other, and he impales the ancestor, like sort of accidentally. He shoves him backwards, and he goes on this wooden stake, at which point we get an animated death scene where he is animated kind of emaciated. You know the end of Last Crusade where the guy loses...
I saw the clip of this, yeah.
It's wild because there's nothing else like this in the movie. But I guess they couldn't figure out how else to do it. So they animate it, and he vaporizes. And so he takes Vera and he rescues her and he gets her out of the crypt. And then basically she's sitting there and the mistress of the house says, yeah, I knew about all this stuff. And Gabor he told us that we had to be secretive about it because he didn't want anybody to come and kill his ancestor. But he really loves you. So he did something terrible in his mind to kill this guy for you. So just have an understanding that, what he has done for you, he's never done for anybody else. And so she goes into the other room and Gabor is there and he's miserable. And he's like, I killed my ancestor. I did this terrible thing. And she says, yeah, but you did it for love. You loved me. That's why you did it. And he was a monster and you had to do what you had to do. So you shouldn't feel bad about this. And she said, and so then I'm like, okay, this has now become a sweet love story. What the hell is going on in this movie? Because it's really very endearing at the end because Gabor's not a bad guy. The monster's been vanquished. Veer and him are in love. But then she's leaving on the bus. And he says, I have a couple things I have to finish here, but then I'll come find you because I love you. But I don't know what he needs to wrap up. But at the very end, he says, I'll come find you. And she goes on the bus and she waves and she smiles and drives off and the movie ends. And it's just
Weird.
such a...
It becomes a happy ending.
Yes. And it's basically, it's a vampire love story. I mean, that's what it is, which...
Actually, it is and it isn't, because the vampire isn't the part of the love story. The modern... It's a love story with true, a vampire.
Yes. It's the non-Van Helsing love story, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's just that you would never... The first 40 minutes of this or so, it's such a by-the-numbers story.
Yeah.
That you have no inkling... Until, like I said, these little things start popping up. Because I thought, like I said, that it was going to be like a Jekyll and Hyde type of vampire, which I thought was fascinating. The idea that, like the Hulk, he becomes a different person at night when the bloodlust takes over. Like, that's not necessarily original. But for what this movie seemed to be, I was like, oh, okay, they're adding a little bit of something different. So it isn't just Dracula. And then it becomes this love story where there's two of them and the ancestor is just identical. Which, honestly, I did not see coming. I really just thought he was a different person, like that his mind was changing.
Are they wearing the same suit?
Well, not the same exact suit, but he wears different suits throughout the movie, so there's no reason you don't think it's him.
It's not just an identical,
No.
every way.
No. And Gabor wears different suits throughout the movie, and the vampires wear. But I mean, they're wearing similar suits in that it's always a full 3-piece suit with a nice little handkerchief in the pocket, and, high quality, and their hair is done the same way. Like it's the same actor, and they clearly didn't make him look different. It's not like the vampire suddenly has like a shock of white running around his hair like they sometimes do, where it's something where you're like, oh, why does he suddenly look different? He looks exactly the same, except that he's got fangs. But vampires grow fangs because Katya, when she first shows up, doesn't have them. She grows them. So that's not even a tell because the movie gives you no reason to think that. And then it just kind of comes up. And this, by the way, very classic Italian trope. In giallos, it happens all the time where there's this sudden late turn twist of something that was never hinted at throughout the whole movie. And it's like suddenly the killer is the mother of one of the characters who back in 1940 was assaulted by somebody who kind of looked like the murder victims. And she's the one who's secretly been killing everybody and you just knew nothing about it. That's a very common thing. So again, this has that Italian thing where it's just like, you know what? We just want to shock him. Just do something random. Fuck it. There's two of them. It's his ancestor. Who cares? And it doesn't. But like I said, it ends up being a very sweet love story because Gabor really does care about her. He's tortured over having to kill his ancestor, even though the guy is clearly a monster. So he has a morality, even though he's been, feeding innocent victims to him. But, I guess there's a spectrum of morality, whatever. So it ends up being this really kind of charming little love story set in a gothic castle with a vampire and a dim vampire that just becomes very jealous when she becomes undead. So it's like the movie's about an hour and a half. I would say an hour of it is pretty conventional, and the last 20 minutes is fucking Pinball Machine Gonzo. It just goes crazy. But it's great because of that. I think up until that point, I was like, okay, this is fine. It's not bad. It's not really good. It's just a different type. It's just Italian names in a Hammer horror film. But then that last 20 minutes just goes off the rails, and then it becomes Italian in a big way. So I liked it. I can't say it's for everybody. I said that in my short review. I'll say it again. It's not necessarily a universal, yes, everybody should see it. But it is it is exactly it's sort of what I thought with a bit of a spicy twist at the end. It's an Italian take on a Hammer horror film. And the Italian part is where it just goes mentally insane in the last 20 minutes and just starts throwing all kinds of ideas at you. Up until that point, it's operating very much like a Hammer film would. It's low budget. The castle is hilariously not a castle at multiple points. They must have gotten a big house and built cardboard bricks of a castle in parts of the wall. That's all it is. Otherwise, it's a modern house. So the outside, they shot a castle exterior for a couple shots. Inside, it's either a set or somebody's modern house with these ridiculous columns.
Suspension of disbelief.
It doesn't matter. Because like I said, the thing that really seals it is the ending just becomes weirdly intricate and complicated, unnecessarily so, but in a way that changes the whole kind of tone of the movie. Because what you are thinking up to a certain point is Gabor is the vampire. And either he is being taken over or he's just being very, very specifically kind to Vera because he wants to win her over and he's going to kill everybody else. But there are no other victims. Katya is the only one who gets killed. Because that was the other thing is, okay, this is the classic setup. There's 6 characters, 5 of them will be dead, and she will be the last one.
And technically, she is... Yeah, Gabor doesn't kill her. It's the vampire Gabor that kills her.
Right. So Gabor doesn't. Yeah. Well, Gabor doesn't kill anybody, but he is allowing people to kill.
The vampire Gabor, the ancestor.
Now, what we don't know is whether the ancestor basically said, "You let me do what I want, or I'll kill you," because he is about to kill him at the end when he comes to save Vera. So you don't really know whether he's actually completely free or not. And the way he is in terms of being tortured by it would suggest that he probably is kind of not wholly on board with it. And he's trying to cure him. Now, what the cure would be, I mean, if you cure him as a vampirism, doesn't he become 700 years old and die? But I don't know. I don't know the mechanics of it, so it doesn't matter. We never find out. And plus now he's freed up from that research, so I don't know if there's other vampires. You would assume there are, the way he talks about it, so maybe that's what he meant by I have a few things to finish up. Maybe he was right about to get the cure in place. So I don't know. It's an interesting film. Not for everybody. Now, I bought it. Is it available to watch anyplace else? It does appear... Oh, it's on Tubi. So you can watch it for free. Yeah. Yeah, so it's on Tubi to watch for free with ads. So I would say if it sounds at all interesting, then you can watch it for free. I want to look at the extras on the... I got it on Blu-ray, so I'm curious.
What year is this again?
1960.
1960, okay.
Yeah. Like I said, I bought it without really knowing anything about it because I was just kind of curious. Yeah, there are some extras on there. There's some alternate opening sequences. I would be curious about it because it's interesting. Some of the reviews are great. Pretty much anything in black and white with good-looking women is okay by me, but there's better out there. Well, that's true. I mean, really enjoyable black and white sleaze. It's not that sleazy. It really isn't. Outside of the one strip scene, which is not technically even a strip scene, it's a burlesque scene, if anything, because the woman never gets nude. That's the closest it comes. And of course the transparent nightgown, but I mean, they don't play that up for what it is. They don't do a zoom in right on a rack, to show very clearly that it's transparent. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah, see, this is all the sexier for not being allowed to bust a garter belt. Yeah, I mean, that's...
Well,
it's an interesting
what I
movie.
was saying is that, honestly, if the robe hadn't been totally see-through, it's almost better when you can't see it quite.
Well, the dancing scene is really good. It reminded me of the butterfly scene from Death Proof. The strip scene from Death Proof where he, with Kurt Russell.
Oh, yeah, got it. Yeah.
It's like that. It's very much like that. But like I said, I thought at that point, I'm like, okay, this is going to dive way into the sleaze factor, and it really doesn't. It then becomes kind of this sweet love story.
It's like surprise. It's not sleazy.
Yeah, it's not what you thought. Yeah, it's a very interesting movie in that it's very unlike. Its description is so. You would think one thing from it, and it's not. And if you're curious, I will send you. So I will. I'll probably link to the Tubi thing instead of the actual. But if you want to see the scene I'm talking about, it's at 31 minutes and 15 seconds. So
What
I will
scene?
actually link to the Tubi link for it.
Or is this the dance sequence?
Yeah. So watch that scene. It's really good.
I don't need that at this time of night.
Oh well, I mean, it doesn't ever go all the way. So I'm just saying, it's fascinating. It's more for when she's taking off so many pieces of clothing, and you keep thinking that it's got to be the last one.
It's almost a Mel Brooks skit there for a minute, right?
It gets so close. Yeah, because you're just sitting here going, okay, how many things are you wearing? And then you see that she's actually very slim underneath. So, which is, it's just like, geez, she's peeling off layer after layer after. Like it is almost a comedy routine. So, yeah.
Well, people wore a lot of clothes, man.
Boy, did they. Yeah. So yeah, I didn't realize you could watch it for free too. That's great. So I would say it's even easier to say, yeah, you might want to give this one a shot because it feels very, very derivative until it isn't. And then it becomes, I think, very interesting. So I enjoyed it. You can watch it for free. I kind of scrubbed through it. It looks like it's probably the high-res version. It doesn't look junky. So I think they've got the new version on there. But it's great that you can watch it for free. And that's it.
Yeah, I mean, how much did you pay for it?
The Blu-ray is probably like $20. I think that's one of the cheaper ones because it's not really. I didn't get like a limited edition super slipcase or anything. I was just like, oh, this is. I bought the Cynthia Rothrock film Undefeatable, and I always like to buy 2 movies from there. So I try to get like one that I know is a guarantee. Like the Undefeatable, I got the limited edition of that because I'm like, that's fucking Cynthia Rothrock. Give me the most expensive one. Fine. I don't care. I'll spare no expense there. But that one I just looked at the cover and I was like, This could be really interesting or just straight up, smut.
Honestly, you looked at it and you said, Italians doing vampires? Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, and because it was at the year and everything, it was because most of the Italian stuff I watch is slashers. This looked like it was gothic horror, which it is pretty much operating as.
Well, they're trying to be gothic horror, yeah.
I mean, it is. They just inject this weird love story into it at the end, but up until that point it's a lot of thunder cracks and windy and leaves and a big
honestly
castle
if they had been a company of traveling players or something like that, you could have made it Victorian or medieval.
Oh, absolutely. All you would have to do is change the costuming and nothing changes, and maybe the way they talk. That's it.
Yeah.
Otherwise you're right, you could make this be in the 1500s and it wouldn't make any difference.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't be a bus; it would be a carriage.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean,
a horse-drawn carriage. Yeah.
A lot of this, if you've seen Coppola's Dracula, looks very familiar. It's just that it's a little bit more modern. But up to a certain point, it is virtually the same movie. And then once you see 2 of Gabor and you don't realize what it is, at first, like I said, my immediate thought wasn't that there was 2 of them. My thought was, okay, he's like schizophrenic or, a modern one. They'd probably play with the idea that maybe he's just schizophrenic or something. But in the context of this, I just thought he was shifting personalities depending on whether he was a vampire Gabor or regular Gabor.
Yeah. Or the bloodlust becomes too much for his personality to handle.
Which I think there are movies that have done that, and it's a neat idea. The idea that that's your allegory for addiction or alcoholism or whatever. You can put whatever thing you want on there, or mental illness.
Yeah.
So that's where I thought they were going, which would have been a neat little spin. But then when it just goes into, oh no, there's another guy, and oh no, now she's really jealous, and oh my God, they're fighting, and she's completely nude fighting a guy in a 3-piece suit, and I'm like, what the hell is this?
I think that moment where the first vampire wife shows up and he has to kill her because she's not having it. That stands. I mean, because when he gets confronted, I thought it was going to be one of like Lucas or Frank, and then it's her with no clothing on going, no, I'm your wife now. It's like, oh Jesus, okay. Yeah.
And he's like, no, I didn't mean to bite you, so you can, get fucked. And she's like,
You
no,
were an
you get
accident.
fucked. And it's like, okay, yeah. I mean, really, I
but
actually,
really-
once
Yeah.
they started fighting, I thought there was going to be a point where he was just going to belt her in the face, closed fist. Like, I'm like, where is this going? This is just going to become a brawl. And then he just takes a steak that's on fire and stabs her in the chest with it to a pole, which isn't much better.
But I mean,
And then,
it's so
she dies.
awful to become a vampire. Let's say she became a vampire and she left the castle, and she's alive for 100 years, right? And someone's like, "Oh, tell me, was there Katya, right? That was her name, Katya?
Yeah, Katya, yeah.
Yeah, Katya, how did you become a vampire?" And you're like, "I was wearing the wrong coat, and a vampire bit me because he thought I was his true love, but then he realized I wasn't, and he threw
So
me
he kicked
aside."
me to the curb.
So he kicked me to the curb, right? And that was 100 years ago. And you're like, that is the saddest thing ever.
Yeah.
Like, I'm glad that she turned around and she was like, no, fuck that, asshole. If I'm fucked, you're
Right.
fucked. We're both fucked forever.
Yeah.
You know, like,
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I understood exactly where she was coming from.
yeah, I applaud her.
It just seemed like it was out of nowhere in a movie that otherwise was paint by numbers up to that point. I mean, I'm not kidding. When the first about 50 minutes of this,
And you know
will-
when they were writing it, they were probably sitting there going, it'd be hilarious. Like, if the first vampire woman was like, hey. Because one of these guys was probably sitting there thinking of, like, his wife or his girlfriend. And he's like, you know what?
that's
It's like,
exactly what I thought.
she wouldn't
Yep.
stand for that shit. And I was like, no way. If I was like, oh no, but this is my true love through time, they'd be like, fuck
My
you,
wife
bitch, you're
caught me
married
at
to
the
me.
bar with my ex, and she started getting on me about it. I'm going to write that scene as a vampire love story. Yep, here we go. Nagging me again.
Yeah, so I'm always interested culturally the relationship dynamics that come up. Like we've talked about this, the French relationship. My wife can't stand that. When you watch like French movies and there's a very kind of specific sort of way that men and women act toward each other in like French movies, that drives my wife up a wall.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking
Yeah.
about, right?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
Absolutely.
And like Italian movies is different. It's not. Yeah, it's definitely not the same as the French couples, but there's similarities, but it's not the same.
There are. No, there are.
But
There's misogyny to it. I mean, there's the same.
Oh
type
yeah,
of thing.
yeah, yeah. But I'm always fascinated by these telltale relationship dynamics these different cultures have, and at different periods in their history of their movie making. You know what I mean? Because like you watch movies from the '60s over here, there's a different kind of angle towards women and relationships as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But even today, when you watch French movies, the relationships, there's a different kind of relationship that men and women have.
Right.
You know, what was the movie
Yeah.
we're watching? The one that Besson did about the space station.
The one beside about the space station.
Yeah. Was it the city of 1,000 something?
Oh, Valerian. Yeah,
Valerian,
yeah. Valerian. Yes,
Yeah, she couldn't stand the couple, the two people in the center of that movie, and like the way that they basically just fucking like were just talking shit to each other. They were assholes to each other through most of the movie, and then at the end she's like, "Why are they together?" And I'm like, "Oh, that's how that works. They basically talk shit to each other until they have sex." You know, and I'm like, that's very common for this type of movie. It's not weird at all, you know. So, anyhow.
Yeah.
Oh my God. No, you know what? Never mind. I was gonna say if we stop now, we'll be pre 2 hours, but with the music and all the other extra stuff, we're definitely at 2 hours, even if we stop now.
Probably.
Yeah,
But I'm not going to play it. I only count that for us talking. I don't count that for
Okay.
just the total runtime of the show.
Well, if we stop now,
Well, I'm done. That was it. That was my review. So
we
I have
stop
nothing else.
now,
So
then
yeah.
we'll come into under 2 hours.
yeah. So yeah, Playgirls and the Vampire on Tubi. I would say watch it. It's interesting, especially if you don't have to pay for it. And yeah, that's it. So on that note, have a wonderful weekend, and we'll be back.
Yeah.
As usual, I'm exceptional ending a show. All right, everybody, talk to you next week. Visit OzoneNightmare.com to subscribe to new episodes, browse through our back catalog, or to find links to support the show. Follow @Ozone Nightmare on Twitter for the latest episode postings and other show information. If 280 characters just isn't enough, you can always email us, theozonenightmare@gmail.com. The opening theme for the show is provided by Heartbeat Hero. The closing theme is provided by Ogre. Please visit and support these artists using the links in the show notes for each episode.